Good morning, please. Good morning and welcome to this webinar. My name is Valérie Schmidt. I'm working at the ILO Social Protection Department, and I'm really pleased to see so many of you here today with us to discuss how integrated policy approaches can support universal social protection. So the ILO recently published the second volume of a compendium called 100 Years of Social Protection, The Road to Universal Social Protection Systems and Floors. It includes 52 real country case studies that focus on innovative solutions for overcoming some of the challenges of achieving universal social protection. Challenges, as you may all know, are manifold, as social protection systems operate in a context of high informality, institutional fragmentation, limited public resources, and new risks and opportunities such as climate change, population aging, digitalization, etc. So you can find the link to the compendium at the bottom of the registration page for the webinar. And also my colleagues have also copied or are going to copy this link in the chat. I hope that you will find in this compendium a number of country experiences that can be a real source of inspiration for you. Some of the case studies describe how countries have managed to increase social protection coverage of excluded groups, such as self-employed workers, sugarcane producers, migrant workers, domestic workers, through integrated policy and financing solutions, through the use of technology and labor inspection. Other case studies focus more on ways to increase fiscal space for social protection, taking advantage of the development assistance, development cooperation, and building progressively domestic resource mobilization efforts and capacities at country level, and also promoting the transition from the informal to the formal economy. That is also a way to increase fiscal space for social protection. Other case studies focus more on the institutional building and the need for coordination for good governance, both administrative and financial governance of social protection. So these integrated policy, financing, and coordination approaches are the type of policy interventions that the ILO and other UN agencies are supporting as part of the Global Accelerator on Jobs and Social Protection for Just Transitions. For those who are not familiar with the Global Accelerator, it is a high-impact initiative of the UN. It was launched during COVID-19 by the UN Secretary General, but today it is more relevant than ever. It is designed to help countries extend social protection to the billions of people that are currently excluded, and to create also millions of decent jobs in certain sectors in particular, such as the green, the digital, and the care economies. So the Global Accelerator puts really workers and their families at the heart of economic and environmental transitions. It is an opportunity for social protection policymakers, that many of you are, and practitioners to overcome coverage and financing gaps for social protection. It has three pillars, and there is a policy integration pillar where the GA, the Global Accelerator, promotes social protection policies as a central piece for any formalization policy, as essential as well to climate change adaptation and mitigation, and as central to many sectoral transformations that the countries are experiencing. The second pillar of the Global Accelerator is what we call the financing pillar. And here, the idea is really to promote increased investments in social protection and to demonstrate also the multiplier effect that social protection investments have on GDP growth and on other indicators of development. And there's a last pillar, which is the multilateral cooperation pillar, where the Global Accelerator tries to foster collaboration between the Ministries of Labor and Social Welfare but also the ministries of finance, ministries of economy, planning, agriculture, etc. And also between the UN, the United Nations, and the IFIs, public development banks, etc., to provide opportunities for synergies and collaboration. So some countries are already working across all these three pillars, so the financing, the policy coordination, and the multilateral cooperation. In Kenya, for instance, development partners have played a very important role in the creation and strengthening of social assistance. This case of Kenya will be presented during our webinar by our colleague Cecilia Mbaka. In the case of the French active solidarity income, what we call the RSA in France, social protection policy is combined with active labor market policies to support the employability and the return to work for the working poor and the unemployed. Other approaches, such as the unemployment protection scheme in Mexico City, which is not only for the formal sector, but for all the workers or those in active age searching for a job, or other policy approach like the labor net experience in India, show that through a single window approach for workers in the informal economy, linking social protection to skills development, support to the development of micro enterprise, etc., we can really achieve successful and sustainable results. We have also examples of the monotax systems in Brazil, in Uruguay, in other countries that really facilitate access to social protection for workers in micro small enterprises. So we have many, many examples in this compendium, and I think, I'm sure you will find some of these examples really useful for your own work. So 3 countries in the compendium have really achieved a lot of results as of today. And these 3 countries are presented through a number of briefs in the compendium. It is the case of Brazil, it is the case of China, and of Kenya. So we really wanted to shed light on these 3 country cases, and I'm really delighted to welcome our 3 distinguished panelists. So first we have Mrs. Cecilia Mbaka. She's the immediate former secretary for social development and head of the National Social Protection Secretariat of Kenya. It is a position that she held until April 2022. And prior to this, she served in several government departments, including older persons, gender division, persons with disabilities, and social welfare. She really helped to create synergies in the delivery of social protection programs in Kenya and to strengthen linkages between all the key players involved. She pioneered the design and execution of Kenya's cash transfer for older persons and persons with disabilities. And she was really instrumental in the rollout of the social registry, which is really a pioneer project of the government of Kenya. She's currently consulting and advising on social protection. So welcome, Cecilia. We have also Professor Fan Wei, who is a professor and deputy dean in the Department of Labor Relations at the School of Labor Economics at Capital University of Economics and Business in China. He also currently serves as the executive director of the China Social Law Research Association and as executive director and secretary general of the Beijing Labor and Social Security Law Society. And his research interests lie in labor relations and social security law. So welcome, Professor Fan Wei. And we have also our dear colleague Helmut Schwarzer, who is the head of the Public Finance, Actuarial and Statistical Service Unit in the Social Protection Department at the ILO. Helmut previously held positions as the Undersecretary for Social Security and the Bolsa Familia program in Brazil. And he was also at the beginning of his career researcher at the IPEA, the Applied Economic Research Institute in Brasilia. So welcome as well, Helmut. So I will ask my first round of questions to the three panelists. So first, Cecilia, let me turn first to you. In Kenya, we saw a transition from a reliance on external partners' resources toward a great increase in domestic resources for financing social assistance programs. There are some very impressive charts, actually, in the compendium that really reflect this shift, this major change. Could you please tell us what were the key measures taken for achieving this increase in domestic resources for social protection? And at the same time, we understand that the governance of the whole social protection system in Kenya was progressively improved, which is actually described in another case study in the compendium. And could you also explain what was really the driving process towards improved governance of social protection in Kenya? Thank you, Cecilia.
Thank you, Valerie, for that introduction and for the questions. And thank you so much for inviting me to this webinar. I'm indeed honored to be part of it. Yes, as Valerie has said, Kenya has a number of case studies in the compendium. And if you allow me, before I go to sharing with you how Kenya increased its domestic resources, I would very quickly summarize those case studies. The three case studies, the first one is on governance of social protection sector. The second one is on the universal cash transfer for senior citizens aged 70 years and above, while the third one is on increasing domestic resources for social protection and progressively reducing reliance on external partners. So on the first case study, the governance of the national social protection in Kenya consists of both contributory and non-contributory schemes, and it is therefore anchored on three pillars of social protection, mainly social assistance, social security, and national health insurance. The social assistance has the key objective of providing direct cash transfer to the poor and vulnerable people over their life cycle, and it is placed within the State Department of Social Protection. Now, the mandate of on social security falls under the State Department of Labor and works very closely with the National Social Security Fund, which is under the same ministry. And I would want to say that the State Department of Labor and the State Department of Social Protection are in one ministry. The health insurance in Kenya is implemented under the National Health Insurance Fund, and the aim is to provide a comprehensive health protection for all. And since the study in the compendium was undertaken, Kenya has had a major development. It recently enacted a law known as the Social Health Authority, and it is this authority that will be overseeing the National Hospital Insurance Fund and two other funds that have been created. And under this law, all Kenyans who are aged above 18 years of age will be required to contribute to it. And one of the things the government will do to ensure that citizens are contributing is to deny them government services if they are not contributing to the fund. The second case in the compendium is the Inua Jamii Senior Citizens Program. Inua Jamii is a Kiswahili word which means uplifting the status of families. And it is a flagship project of the Republic of Kenya, which brings together three programs currently covering older persons, persons with severe disabilities, and orphaned and vulnerable children. Now, the compendium focuses on the Senior Citizens Program, which was rolled out in 2018, and it was rolled out as a social pension for older persons aged 70 years, and it represents Kenya's first entitlement and universal program. The program, and I think it is important to say this, was rolled out during a campaign period when the then Jubilee government was seeking its second term, and they included it in their campaign manifesto. And this preceded the targeted program for older persons aged 65 years and above, which had been running since 2009. And the universal rollout was in recognition that targeted programs have up to 50% inclusion and exclusion errors, which leave many deserving cases and promotes exclusion of deserving cases. So the beneficiaries receive an equivalent of US $17 per month, and payment is done through local banks that have been contracted to do that. Payments have been decentralized up to very local levels through agents that various banks have contracted, and it has thus reduced the number of kilometers that beneficiaries have to travel to access their stipends. Now, it will be important to say that the program is fully funded by the government of Kenya since its inception. At no time have development partners funded direct transfers to the beneficiaries, despite the fact that we've been working very closely with partners like World Food Program, UNICEF, World Bank, and FCDO. In most cases, they have come in to support the program to increase, to develop systems to increase its efficiency and effectiveness in the delivery. The third case study is on increasing domestic resources for social protection. And the case recognizes that social assistance programs in Kenya are all tax financed, as I have said. And as I have also said, development partners have been coming in to just play a catalytic role for increasing the physical space. In Kenya, the core tax finance social protection programs offer regular and predictable cash transfer. And for the last 10 years, the program has expanded to cover, to cover 300,000 beneficiaries, and it has currently reached 1.3 million. Now, with the increase in government investment, it has also increased and currently stands to about US dollars 234 million. And overall, the government of Kenya is spending about 0.4% of the GDP on cash transfers, which makes it the largest investor in social assistance in the East African region. And the social assistance has really been boosted by the rollout of the universal cover for those aged 70 years and above, who currently total to slightly less than 1 million and stands at 833,000. So those are the three case studies, and unfortunately, I'm not able to go into a lot of details due to time factor. And so I will get into governance. Now, on governance, as we all know, effective governance of social protection sector is key in ensuring sustainability for social protection initiatives, and poor governance will narrow down to fragmentation and duplication, while better governance will contribute to better utilization of resources and accountability, which ultimately contributes to sustainability. And when I look at Kenya and considering that the National Social Protection System consists of both non-contributory and contributory schemes, which are all governed by different laws and policies, how well the social protection system will be coordinated and governed will determine how well the three systems are financed to create sustainability in the sector. Now, also speaking of governance, as Kenya has created the State Department of Social Protection, which was established in 2018, that is responsible for implementing the National Social Protection Policy and by extension coordinating social protection programs in Kenya. Now, the State Department of Social Protection has gone ahead to create the National Social Protection Secretariat. And one of the mandates of the National Social Protection Secretariat is to enhance coordination and to create synergy in the delivery of social protection to avoid duplication and overlapping, and especially considering that this is a sector with very many players. Now, the Secretariat has borne most of the coordination responsibilities in the social protection sector, and it has initiated a number of activities to enhance coordination and which ultimately contributes to good governance and financial sustainability of the sector.
Okay.
Now, such initiatives have included, for example, setting up a community of practice for the social protection sector, considering that this is a landscape, social protection landscape is a very dynamic sector, rife with changing concepts, innovations, emerging issues and trends that often require shared learning and exchanges across and among different stakeholders. So the community of practice then becomes a very good platform for facilitating exchange and learning to advance policy and enhance design and implementation of social protection programs. The other thing the Secretariat has been doing is mobilizing stakeholders to advocate for the expansion of social transfers coupled with increased funding through different forums, like for example, during the national conferences, which we hold every 2 years. The Secretariat has also gone ahead and established a social registry, which is hosting data for existing and potential beneficiaries. And by collecting data for all household members, it allows promotion of policies that link individuals to different protection intervention along their life cycle. And so this data is not only for the cash transfer programs, but any stakeholder wishing to, to develop any program can access this data and roll out a program for the poor and vulnerable. It has also gone ahead and developed monitoring and evaluation framework, which provides a tool for the systematic and routine monitoring, evaluation, and reporting of high-level indicators of the progress and achievements of the social protection sector in Kenya. And the framework is a key contributor to fostering coordination, accountability, and synergy building across the sectors. I'm almost finishing, Valerie, on that. Now, as part of also strengthening coordination, Kenya hosts joint activities and events for the sector. For example, the Social Protection Conference, which is held every 2 years. During the conference, the sector has an opportunity to review the milestones that stakeholders have realized and chart areas of focus moving forward. And the most recent conference was held in April 2023. The president officiated the function and made commitments that will increase funding, enhance institutional mechanism, and expand programs. And the impact of the commitments that the president made are likely to be felt in many years to come. Now, when it has come to development partners, they have not been left behind. Kenya works very closely with them, and I listed them earlier. Now, the development partners themselves have, with a view of supporting the development efforts, the government efforts, they have established the sector group for social protection, which they established in 2020, with the objective of ensuring that development partners in the social protection sector provide support to the government of Kenya in a predictable and coordinated manner. And this has improved governance and provided a platform for government and partners to come together to monitor aid effectiveness. And I'll stop there, Valerie, for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia. Thank you so much. We are really constrained by time, and this is really a pity because we could listen to you for hours to explain. The case of Kenya is extremely rich with all these different case studies that are in the compendium, and so many examples on financing, on governance, on ways to make social security contributions compulsory for all, on the social registry, on this conference. I know that this conference also happens in other countries in the region, for instance, in Mozambique and Zambia. So thanks a lot, Cecilia, and we will come back to you with a second question a bit later in the webinar. Thank you so much. So
Thank you too.
I will turn to Professor Fan, and let me ask you my next question. So in the discussion on how to mitigate and adapt to the ongoing climate change and climate catastrophes, it has become clear that the necessary transition towards a green carbon neutral economies can have a direct negative impacts on the livelihoods of people. So to ensure that the burden of these large transformations of the economy is shared in a just, in a fair manner, these measures really need to go hand in hand with social protection policies that support and empower individuals who are really at risk of being left behind. So China has had a long history of really linking climate policy with social protection. And I think it's really reflected, at least by one case study in this compendium. We understand that really since this first experience in 1998, China has further developed social protection and linking it also to its just transition policy towards a greener economy. So could you explain a little bit to us this history and share with us examples, concrete examples that come to your mind where really the government took this type of approach? Thank you, Professor Fan.
Okay, well, Ross, thank you. In the 1950s, due to the population pressure, the Chinese government, the Chinese people turned some forest into the land, because for this food security reason, we need more land for the food, for the rice and food. And on the other hand, due to the large scale construction, and we need a lot of wood for the construction. So since the 1950s, the forest, the cover of Chinese is declining, and China is experienced the considerable reduction, and which caused some disasters, including flood and soil erosion. So, as you mentioned, in the 1998, the Chinese government put a ban on the deforestation. So, and we need a transition from the deforestation to reforestation. So the Chinese government is trying to integrate the industrial policies, environment policies, and the social protection policies together. The first of all, due to the environment protection, the Chinese government have helped the state-owned forest enterprises to transit from the forestation to the reforestation. So a lot of employees of the enterprises was forced to leave their job. The first social protection policies is about the social insurance, especially the unemployment benefit and the retirement benefit. In terms of their employees, some of them, they cannot get a job, they can get unemployment benefit from the insurance. And for some others, when they reach the pensionable age, some of them, or even a little bit earlier, before the pensionable age, they can get the pension from the pension fund, or even they can get some compensation from the civil compensation, the civil payment from the enterprises. So the social insurance build a social safety net for those people forced to leave their job due to the environment protection policies. The second is the job replacement. As just I mentioned, some enterprises has to be transformed into another field due to the environment protection, especially for the enterprises in the forestation, wood cutting, something like that. They have to transform into reforestation. So some of the employees has been maintained in that enterprises, but the government and enterprises has helped them to learn the new train them to the new skills. So they not just know how to cut wood, but they have to know how to plant the wood. So the Chinese government offered some subsidies for the enterprises who can keep or accept some enterprises, some employees forced to leave their job. And the third social protection policy is about the subsidies for the relative sector, especially some of, as I just mentioned, some farmers, due to the food security reason, they used to turn some forest into land. They live on their land. They have to get some incomes from their land and paddy field. But the Chinese government forced them to turn their cultivated land into the forest again. So they cannot pick the wood for the fire, and they cannot get enough food for their land. So the Chinese government offered some food subsidies for them, or the living allowance for those people, so they can get the food rice for the Chinese government to minimize the possible negative impact of the social environment policies. Maybe I can share another case has not included in this compendium. It's almost the same as a case included in this compendium. It's about the fishermen which is happened in my hometown. I grew up in the Hunan province, which is located in the central part of China. There is the second largest lake called the Dongting Lake. Since the end of the 1990s or the early of the 2000 year, the Chinese government put some ban on the fishing because of the aquatic animal protection and the water reservation needs. So the Chinese government asked those people who used to live on their boat, they have to get the incomes by catching the fish. So the Chinese government offers some social protection. The first one is the local government build some houses for all those people. Ask them to abandon their boat, and you can get some compensation and get a house. So they have to get used to live on the land, not just live on the boat. And the Chinese government also buy back their fishing tools, including the boat and nets, and pay some money for that because they have to get used to the life on the land. If they cannot get used to the life, if they still have the boat and the nets, they may go back to the life they used to do for catching the fish. So the second, the local government, especially the agriculture department, work together with the labor department. So they have those people to transfer them to the near developed zone. The companies and enterprises in the developed zone will offer some job for them, and some of them has to change their job from the fisherman to the worker in the companies. The second is the local government offers some temporary living allowance for 3 years for those they have moved from the boat to the land. The local government offers some temporary allowance for each people, is about 2,400 yuan for each people. So it is affordable for them for the daily living needs. So based on the two cases, we can say the Chinese government is trying a way to utilize the social protection policies to facilitate some environment policies, and it also reaches some good consequence. Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you so much, Professor Fan, for this very concrete example, one coming from the compendium and one coming from your hometown or in Hunan province. to show how a combination of social protection, skills development, employment, job placement, temporary allowances, even food subsidies are required now to facilitate what we call the just transitions. So the transformation of the economy has, of course, social impact. So it's really to facilitate this transformation, whether it's towards sustainable and carbon zero economy, or whether it's any type actually of transformation, economic transformation that really requires this social investment, so that you leave no one behind. So thanks a lot for this example, and we hope that in the next iteration of the compendium we will be able to with you to document the other case that comes really from your province. Thanks a lot. And so now I will turn to Helmut, and let me ask you about the case of Brazil. Of course, Helmut, you are one of our top contributors to the compendium, because you really documented many country experiences in the Central America when you were based in Mexico. And but today we would like to ask you questions more about Brazil, which is also very, very present in the compendium with different case studies. In particular, the monotax regime in Brazil, which is called Simples, how this regime was introduced and further developed, how it has successfully used a combination of digital technologies and linking different institutions, different policies together, so really to contribute to the formalization of the economy in Brazil. So could you please explain us more about this Simples and its impact, and really how all this change could happen in Brazil? Thank you so much, Helmut.
Yeah, thank you, Valerie, for the invitation to this really very interesting webinar. And firstly, let me congratulate you and all the team for having organized this collection of good practices. The first volume and the second volume together, I remember that the plan was to present 100 good practices because of the commemoration of the 100 years of the ILO, and I think that the goal was reached with really a very diverse collection of experiences on many fields and from many countries. I'm also happy to see that among the participants there are some of the co-authors from many regions, and from the case of Central America, many thanks to Martin Gomez from Mexico and Gustavo Picado from Costa Rica, who are listening to this webinar. Well, you asked me about the Simples in Brazil. As the name suggests, it is a program to simplify the affiliation, the registration, the taxation, the payment of social security contributions and taxes for small and micro enterprises in Brazil. Its first law was in 1996, and the current law was adopted by the parliament in 2006. So 10 years later, there was a reform that consolidated the process. The small and micro enterprises can opt to use the Simples. The Simples is not obligatory, it's not mandatory for the small and micro enterprises. If any enterprise thinks that it can handle the traditional channels of contributing to social security and paying taxes, that is fine. Actually, we have currently 3.3 million small and micro enterprises who opted for this regime, and a total of 6.2 million enterprises of all sizes contributing to social security. That was data from December 2021. So you see that approximately half of the enterprises of the country have opted for this simplified mechanism. The the mechanism consolidates taxes, 7 taxes, not only income tax, but also indirect taxes from the federal government, from the states, from the federal district of Brasilia, and from the municipalities. These entities are obliged to participate because the level of the law approved by the parliament is a mandatory law for the states, municipalities, and the federal district as well. And it also consolidates the employer contribution to Social Security. The contribution of the employee, of the workers of the small and micro enterprises, the enterprises need to withhold and collect to Social Security as well. So you see that there is a consolidation of almost all taxes and contributions, but the contribution of the employee needs to be collected together and identified so that the credit can be allocated to the person. There is also a simplification of many declarations, payment mechanisms, everything currently electronic. Of course, when the system started in 1996, technology had not developed that way. Today is everything is using an electronic platform. And also the registration of socioeconomic data has also been simplified. There is lots of crossing databases as well, so that you do not need to declare the same information twice or multiple times. The revenue that is collected from the companies of the Simples is shared between the federal government, the states, and municipalities, proportional to the taxes that were consolidated. And then the revenue that remains with the federal government, part of it goes to financing Social Security benefits, part of it goes to general taxation. The proportions of the taxes and contributions that are consolidated. You asked me about policies which were integrated to promote the formalization of these enterprises. So firstly, there is a big system of technical assistance to small and micro enterprises, which is a kind of a public-private system. It is partly financed by public funds, contributions that the enterprises pay together with the Social Security contributions. There is an institution that is called SEBRAE, the Brazilian Service to Support the Small and Micro Enterprises. Then there is a participation of all the employer associations in support of this SEBRAE system as well. And it provides technical assistance, training on entrepreneurship, on financial management, on productivity, digitalization of the enterprises, ESG, how to apply ESG criteria, how to be part of a supply chain, how to have access to credits. Then there is a second important policy, which is the financing policy, the credit for small and micro enterprises by means of the Public Development Bank, BNDES, which is a big public development bank in Brazil, and also several banks that operate providing credit to small and medium enterprises. And finally, there is also a policy in place to increase the participation of small and micro enterprises in public procurement. So there is a share of public procurement, a certain percentage of the purchases, which is reserved to small and micro enterprises. So I would like to finish with 3 alerts. One of them is that this kind of policy should not be set up with the expectation of solving the financing of the social protection system. Because as you see, the revenue which is collected is not that much. You're not going to solve the financing of social protection system on top of the small and micro enterprises, but it is rather a policy to formalize and to foster the development of small enterprises that later on can become stronger enterprises, can become strong actors of the economy, and as they grow, they contribute more and more to the financing of social protection systems. So don't expect that you will earn the revenue at the beginning of the scheme, but later on as the companies solidify. The second is that it is important when you set the upper limit of what characterizes a small and a micro enterprise, and you set a graduation process. When the company grows, that the company really grows out of the program, that it doesn't split into two companies to remain within the comfort zone. This is a risk. You love Valerie, but I think this is really a risk that one can observe in many cases, and it is important to have both inspection and also policies that create incentives that the companies graduate and become bigger, and that they gain scale, and that they can provide more employment and so on. And the third one, I think it is important from the Brazilian experience to learn that this is at the type of policy that where you need to be very clear which economic sectors and which activities you want to promote, because of course there will be a big political pressure, many sectors, many enterprises that will wish to be part of such a kind of subsidized, simplified mechanism. There is a certain subsidy which is implicit in the simplified contribution rate, and you need to be very clear, because otherwise you will lose revenue from those sectors that actually are not meant to be promoted by the formalization policy, that are already formalized and that want to become subsidized. So the policy backfires in that case if you don't pay attention to this. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you, Helmut. Thanks a lot. I think we still have time to take another round of questions for our panelists, but I will ask them to be very short and concise in their answers. And before we move to the second round, I would like to invite all the participants to really put one key question and in the chat, and to explicitly mention to whom they are addressing this question. So I would like to stay with you, Helmut, and to continue the conversation with you, actually. So thanks a lot for explaining the Simples, and for also telling us really what we can expect from the Simples and what we cannot expect. Based on this discussion and also the other discussions in Brazil, actually, I understand that Simples was very good to formalize a large share of the informal economy, but that still there are a number of groups of the population, such as also workers in rural areas, in the agriculture sector, or domestic workers, that really needed other types of integrated policy approaches. So could you please share with us also your experience in really beyond the Simples, trying successful experiences in really reaching out to these groups of the workers and enterprises? Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, I think I didn't mention the number of workers who are under the Simples. Currently, it's 12 million. Right? It's I think maybe kind of the biggest inclusion program of the Brazilian social security, of the Brazilian policy as such, right? In terms of formalization. And the one that you just mentioned, the rural workers program, there is a differentiated treatment for rural workers. They belong to the general regime, So they accumulate rights in the general regime, but they have a different treatment because of the different cycle, business cycle, because of the different particularities of agriculture. Especially in the case of the self-employed, the small establishments which work with family manpower, and basically which is not the big capitalized agriculture for export, but it is the small agriculture that produces local food, the food which is consumed in the country. There is a specific policy in place which exists since the 1970s and which has been, let's say, convalidated and also validated and even extended by the new constitution of 1988 and by the legislation that came afterwards. And this regime, it covers around 10 million workers in the family-based agriculture, of 15 million workers in the whole of the agriculture. 10 million approximately work in small establishments producing with the families, with the family members. And they have not the possibility of contributing regularly each month because they do not receive wages, but their contribution is on top of the production that they sell. When they have the harvest, when they sell the production, the companies that buy the agricultural production are obliged to retain, to collect the contributions on behalf of these workers, and formalize those contributions. This way, the peasants, the small family agriculture workers, they do not need to prove that they have done monetary contributions, but they need to prove that they have worked in agriculture when they apply for a benefit, when they have the right to benefits as other people as well in the general regime. It is a flat rate benefit. But what they need to show, they need to show a proof that they have worked in agriculture. And among those proofs, for example, proofs of trade unions of who work in the agriculture, who cover people working in the agriculture, of the associations of the small agriculture, documents that show that production was sold, even photographs can be used to be as proofs that you have worked in agriculture. So currently, this special rule is responsible for almost 10 million benefits that are paid. So it's 7.1 million old age pensions and 2.4 million survivor pensions for the rural population. Which have a very important role in terms of income distribution towards the countryside, which is usually a region which has a lower income, larger poverty rates than the cities. And again, you asked how that policy is integrated with other policies. And here I think that the important partners are those ministries and institutions that promote the small agriculture, and that promote food security, because the small agriculture is responsible for around 70% of the food which is consumed in the country. So, for example, institutions that provide technical assistance, that provide training credits to the rural area, seeds, market access, the program of cisterns to accumulate water in the regions which are dry and which have a short period of rain. So the existence of there is more than 1 million cisterns that have been built in that region, and that help stabilize the supply of water to the agriculture. a policy of regulatory stocks of food by the Ministry of Agriculture, and again public procurement policies, for example, for school meals, mandating that the ingredients be bought from the family agriculture, and the same for hospitals and other public institutions. So if you link all those policies together, then you create an incentive that helps developing that sector, and that helps formalizing the relations with social security as well. So thank you again, Valerie.
Thanks, Helmut. I think this is very interesting, and all our colleagues from Malawi, Senegal, Rwanda that are considering also the extension of social protection to the agriculture sector, I'm sure are listening very carefully to what you are explaining about Brazil. I think we should definitely, I mean, there is, I'm sure, a lot of documentation on this huge transformation in the agriculture sector, and I'm sure we will need to share these documents with our colleagues and the policymakers who are listening to us after this webinar. So thanks a lot, Helmut. I will now turn to Professor Fan. I had a question for you on how this coordination at national level trickles down, at different levels of the administration and of the country. But I see that there is also a number of questions that are in the chat for you. Yes. Is there a time limit on the support given by the government to the workers who lost their jobs due to environmental protection policies? You mentioned that the government worked with enterprises to implement the policies. Did the government work with other partners? So it's really, I think these two questions, the one I had prepared for you and the one that comes from the chat, are really about how the policy of this integrated policy approach really trickles down at different level of governance. How does the government works with enterprises and with other players? Professor Fan, we are listening to you. Thank you.
Okay. Well, first of all, I would want to share two figures about two cases, maybe to show you the achievements the Chinese government reached in the two cases. In the first cases is about the forest, the logging industry. From the 1990 to the 2020, China increased its forest cover from the 157 million to the 220 million hectares. As I know, during the past 3 decades, the growth rate of the forest cover of China is almost the the #1 in the world. And at the same time, the Chinese government has eradicated the absolute poverty. So we can say when the Chinese government implementing the environment policy, but it does not undermine the social protection of the people or people. Another figure is about the case I mentioned happened in the Hunan province. I have the annual family income before the fishermen move to the land is about 20,000 yuan. But 3 years later, when they move on the line, the average annual family income reached about 60,000 yuan per year. So it's almost tripled about that. So we can see how functioning well about the environment policies and the social protection policies in China. As the questions you just raised, the moderator raised, the first I want to say from the problem guidance, because we have to solve the problem, because the environment pressure, so the Chinese government put the pressure on the industry and the enterprises. The first question is how to resolve all the people has been impacted. So how to help the people who has been impacted by those policies. The first one is to offer some social safety net, including the unemployment the insurance and the retirement insurance. In terms of the retirement, the pension, that has no time limit, but the unemployment the benefit has some time limit. And at the same time, the Chinese government, the fund will help them to re-employment and get some training. And on the other hand, not just help them to overcome the difficulties at the very beginning of the policy was implemented, and the social policy protection policy is also want to help them to be self-reliant and have a sustainable life. So the Chinese government offered some subsidies for the enterprises to offer some training for those people, and also help the enterprises or the local government to upgrade the industry. For example, as I mentioned, for the fishermen, the local government banned the fishing production at this area, but they turned the area to be a scenery to attract for the tourists for them, and the fishermen who used to live on boats become the cottage owner at the local place. They can offer some food and open a restaurant for the local tourists. They came to the lake for the fun. And on the other hand, the local government also helped them to utilize the water resource to cultivate some fish. Cultivate some fish and help them to sell their fish and try to process all those fish into the dry fish, and they can sell this product online, so they can get much more money than they used to live on their boat. So that's the linkage. The first one is we have to try to solve the problem when the environment policy was implemented. And the second is we have to utilize the social protection policy to have, so help them to get more chance to be a part of this society. So that's a linkage of the different policies. As the second, the questions about the coordination of the different places, I would like to say the coordination between the central government and local government is quite obvious. The first is, as we all know, the two cases is almost in the different area, but it happened almost along the same river, the Yangtze River. As we all know, the Yangtze River flows through about 11 provinces from the west to the east. So the central government built a mechanism to coordinate all those 11 provinces. So we call the Yangtze River Economic Belt. So this belt is not just for the economy, but also including some social issues, has to coordinate the different provinces. And the second, the central government offers much more money to support the local government to push and execute the policies. The number we have mentioned in the case is about the subsidies for the rural residents. Until the 2020 amount to 438 billion yuan has been offered to the rural residents, because they have been forced to leave their land. They have to turn their cultivated land into the forest. So they subsidize for the food. They subsidize for the enterprises to offer a new job for them, and also subsidize for the training. That's all the coordination between the central government and local government. The local government also they will have to coordinate the resources. All they have, they also put some money into the program by themselves, and they also will attract some other participants to join the program, and they hand in hand together to push forward the social protection policies. On the other hand, as I just mentioned, there is a cross-department the coordination mechanism, especially the cases as I just mentioned, the two cases as I just mentioned is not just about one department, but also is concerned about the different department, not just the fishing department, but also the neighbor department, the industrial department. So all those departments has to coordinate to solve the different problem is related to their field. So the second is a coordination between the different departments. The third, I think, is about the coordination between the different provinces. As I just mentioned, we have a Yangtze River economic belt. The different provinces have to coordinate with each other, not just about the environment issue, but also the social issue. As we just learned in the case, some about the different province along the Yangtze River, the development level is different. Some is developing, some is underdeveloped. So in terms of the some province, they are less developed province. They have to transfer their employees or people to the developed province. So they have to coordinate. So to utilize, because the industrials in the developed province, they need manpower, so they can attract a lot of people from the less developed province and also help them to implement the environment policy together. So that's all for the question. I didn't see the question in the question box. So as you just mentioned, some subsidies has some time limit. As I just mentioned, in the fishing case, the local government just offer a temporary subsidies for those people who move online. The temporary the living allowance is about 3 years to help them to get smoothly transit from their boat to the land. So that's my response to all those three questions. Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you, Professor Fan. I mean, it was very, very interesting to listen to you and to see how all this is connected, all the social protection with other policies to facilitate the transformation of the economy, sometimes with also internal migrations, the need for coordination across different departments, ministries, also the question of financing and return on investment, because you have mentioned it as well. So we understand now everything about thanks to you about this really, I mean, looking at this case, not only as one small case, but that's really something much bigger, in line actually with what we aim to achieve as part of the Global Accelerator. So this was really a lot of food for thought, I would say. So thanks a lot, and of course we need to keep in touch for the upcoming for the next compendium, I guess. So we really want to work with you on this case in particular.
Okay.
So thanks a lot, Professor Fan. So I will turn now back to Cecilia. Cecilia, I mean, you have received a lot of questions on financing in the chat. I know you are answering to some of them. There is a question on the reduction of dependence on external funding and ODA from development partners in implementing social protection interventions in countries. This is a question from William. And there is also another question that is very interesting from Esther on how to ensure that this compulsory contribution under the social health insurance, where everybody above the age of 18 must contribute. How does it work concretely? How can we really enforce this compulsory contribution? And how is money collected? How does it work concretely? So if you could answer these questions, I'm sure there are other questions in the chat, but at least to focus really on the financing part of the social protection reforms in Rwanda. Thank you, Cecilia. Over to you. Cecilia, we cannot hear you. Are you with us?
Sorry, I'm sorry, I was muted. Sorry.
So did you hear the questions, right? You heard the questions?
Please come again.
Yes. Okay. So there are many questions for you in the chat, and many of them are on financing. There is a question from Esther on how this social health insurance, compulsory contribution works in practice. If everybody above 18 years of age needs to contribute, how does it work? Are people compliant? But how can they be compliant, and how can they indeed contribute, through which mechanisms, etc.? This is one very important question. I think everybody wants to hear the answer. And there is also another question from William on how Kenya was able to move from an important catalytic support in terms of ODA at the beginning to domestic resource mobilization. How can countries, move from dependence to dependence on external funding to progressively building their own resource mobilization capacity? So, Cecilia, the floor is yours.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Valerie. Now, I'll start with the issue of the mandatory contribution to the newly created Social Health Authority that is going to oversee the National Hospital Insurance Fund. Now, the current National Health Insurance Fund, as it is, contribution is mandatory. Now, with the new social health insurance, it is a newly enacted law. In fact, it is yet to be gazetted by the Minister for Finance. But ideally, what will be happening once it is gazetted, then the government will need to come up with measures that will ensure that as many Kenyans as possible can contribute. What the Minister for Health has said in some of the statements that he has been making as he has been talking about the social health insurance is that those who do not contribute will be denied government services. Like, for example, you cannot apply for a national identification card if you are not registered with the health insurance. But I think the government will need to come up with very strict mechanisms on how they will be able to make sure that everybody contributes to the health insurance. And I think the fear is that majority of Kenyans, and especially the youth, are not in salaried employment. Majority of them are unemployed. And so how well they will be able to contribute then remains to be seen. We can only remain hopeful that as many people as possible can be able to contribute. Now, on the issue of moving from donor dependence to utilization of domestic resources for social protection. A number of things have happened that has made Kenya to be able to do that. Now, one of them has been political goodwill. Like, for example, as I said, when Kenya rolled out the universal cover for older persons, this was really a government initiative. And so they committed themselves to the rollout and to allocate funding. Now, other than that, our constitution is very clear on the issue of providing social protection. It commits itself fully to that. And even our vision document also commits itself to providing social protection and even goes further to create a fund. Now, this commitment has then translated into government coming up with policies that have enabled the government to finance social protection. The other thing is enhancing budgetary allocation to finance social protection initiative. And I think moving forward, we are even likely to see more money being allocated following the fact that the president during the international conference did indicate that the government was going to expand cash transfer beneficiaries by over 2 million. Now that will be requiring a lot of resources because commitment enrollment, of course, goes hand in hand with the allocation of resources. The other thing is that Kenya has developed an investment plan on social protection. And although the document has not been rolled out, which outlines social protection programs that Kenya will be initiating as we move towards the Vision 2030, and the resources that the government will be required to set aside for their implementation. We are already seeing initiatives being started, like, for example, we have just piloted a universal cover for children. For children. And we are lobbying the government to see whether a universal cover for children can be rolled out, even if it means gradually realizing the universal cover, possibly targeting a number of years and moving upwards until they are 18 years. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Cecilia. I think your points on financing and social protection seen as an investment is very important. I mean, we are we have several studies now at the ILO that we try to update regularly, and there will be a new update next year by Helmut Schwarzer and his team. But we know that the financing gap for social protection is 78 billion per year in low-income countries, and that it represents 15.9% of this country's GDP on average. So the financing gap to achieve at least the social protection floor is huge. So we know, I mean, from the examples of Professor Fan, that of course, social and Helmut and you also examples in Kenya, that social protection is not a cost, it's really an investment with returns on investment at households level, as was explaining Professor Fan at the national level as well. But we know that there is research, there is evidence, but however, how to move from the situation we are today to a situation where there is enough financing to achieve the social protection floor in each country, this is a big question. And of course, the example of Kenya is super important, and we hope that we will be able to document also more examples from other countries in the coming months. So thanks a lot, Cecilia, for this testimony as well. I see many other questions. Actually, my colleague Anna is helping me to to find all the questions that are in the chat. There is a question on for you, actually, Cecilia, while you are still online, on this community of practice that has been organized in Kenya. There is a question on whether the workers and the employers' organizations are also part of this community of practice and can really raise their voice. Over to you, Cecilia.
Yes, they are part of it. As I said at the beginning, when we talk about social protection, the National Social Protections Policy stands on 3 pillars. That is social security, social assistance, and social health insurance. And so any initiative that we make as a sector, we shall carry together the 3 pillars. And so they are part of the community of practice. And in most cases, when we hold, for example, webinars or we have meetings where we're bringing stakeholders together, then they will be included in those meetings. Yeah.
Thank you, Cecilia. And I think we have another question, a question from Esther to Helmut about I don't know if we call it graduation, but graduation strategies for companies. How do you ensure that does Brazil and other countries that have implemented the mono tax ensure that companies don't stay in the simplest, right? But indeed move out from simplest to the next level. So Helmut, could you try to answer this difficult question? Thank you.
Yes, well, I don't know if there is any magic solution for that. And I also don't know if it is the case of looking for graduation in all situations, but because there might be certain operations that remain at smaller scale, there might be the case of certain types of enterprises that will continue being small and micro enterprises for a long time, maybe forever. But in the case of those enterprises that are really successful, that apply the principles of good management, and that take the opportunity and grow and improve their business and the scale of business, and can generate more employment, and where the scale is important for the competitiveness of the company. If there is an upper limit, and if there are rules that create an incentive for the companies to split into smaller companies at the moment they reach the upper level, so that they do not lose the subsidy that is allocated to the formalization program, this becomes a problem for development. And perhaps a way of doing that is to fine-tune to decrease progressively the subsidy, in case it exists, as the size of the company grows. So maybe introducing steps in terms of levels of or different treatments according to the size of the company within the program, so that let's say the graduation is not that painful as it may seem at the moment it reaches the upper level of the program in terms of the limits within a company is classified as small or micro enterprise. And then, of course, there needs to be surveillance and inspection. So we should not be naive and think that everybody is honest. There are those who cheat, and there are quite some who cheat as well on the state and on the programs. And of course, there needs to be justice. There needs to be inspection. There need to be tools to check whether the companies are really complying with the rules. Of course, if you have millions of micro enterprises, you're not going to send an inspector to each of the micro enterprise, but you need to develop digital tools that help you cross-check the consistency of the information that is provided to you.
Thank you, Helmut. Thanks a lot. And on your last point on inspection, etc., I think there is another case that is very interesting in China, where labor inspectors and social security work together to really ensure that all companies can comply with the law. So thanks a lot, Helmut. So I would like to thank you all very much for joining this discussion today and asking excellent questions. My special thanks go to our panelists, of course. So Professor Fan Wei from China, Cecilia Mbaka from Kenya, and Helmut Schwarzer from Geneva/Brazil. Thank you for taking the time to join us and share with us your expertise on these 3 country cases. I hope that it was also a very enjoyable enjoyable experience for you. And I would like also to thank socialprotection.org, and in particular our colleagues Paula and Fabiana for supporting us in the organization of the webinar, and also to the ILO team, so Anna, Kriti, and Victoria Giroux, that helped me in preparing the webinar. So it has become very clear during this discussion that there is really a lot of potential for integrated policy approaches and integrated financing, and that these country cases that we have discussed today are only an appetizer, and that we will, I think we will, as part of the work on the global accelerator, we will really try to build a compendium of cases, of more cases, linking really social protection with other policies, looking at ways to increase fiscal space for social protection and social development, decent employment, formalization, etc., based on what governments have already done. And also, thanks to the Global Accelerator, we will be able to accompany some of these processes, and of course, learn also from the experiences of the Pathfinder countries as part of the Global Accelerator. So we really hope that this is only the beginning of an intense and continuous discussion on really ways to integrate economic, environmental, social transformations through integrated policies and financing, and also collaboration, coordination across the whole government with the UN, with the public development banks and development partners. And of course, I'm not forgetting our social partners, workers and employers organizations that were today present with us and also asked a very relevant question to Cecilia. So thanks a lot to all of you for joining, and I hope we will meet again soon, online or in presence. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.